The morning had just begun, with the soft golden sun slowly spreading its light across the sky, while the birds filled the air with their cheerful songs. In the park nearby, people moved about quietly. Some were walking briskly to stay fit, some strolled in pairs chatting softly, and a few had earphones in, lost in their own music. Not far from the park stood Anna's little house, painted a pale blue with white window frames. The front garden was filled with fresh flowers that seemed to glow under the morning light, and the gentle smell of dew still lingered around her home, making the whole place feel peaceful and alive. It was exactly 6 o'clock when Anna's alarm rang. Reminding her of the long trip she had to take that day. Just yesterday, her boss had informed her about this important work assignment, so she quickly opened her eyes and sat up a little anxious after seeing the time. Without wasting a moment, she rushed to get ready, washing her face, brushing her hair, and slipping into the brand new dress she had bought only the day before. Feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness, she hurried downstairs, where the smell of warm breakfast greeted her. Her mother and father were already seated at the table, waiting for her with gentle smiles, ready to share the first meal of the day before her journey began. Her father looked up first and said warmly, "So, today is the big day. You're leaving for your job trip. I hope everything goes well and that you have a great journey. Don't forget to call us once you reach." Anna smiled, though her eyes showed a hint of nervousness.
"Don't worry, Dad.
I'll be back in just a few days, and the first thing I'll do is come and sit here with you again." Her mother, who had been quietly watching her, leaned forward and said softly, "Take care of yourself, Anna. I know how much this trip means to you. You've been planning and waiting for this opportunity for so many months, and now that it has come, we couldn't be happier for you." Her voice trembled slightly with both pride and concern. Anna touched her mother's hand and replied with quiet determination, "Yes, Mom, I know. This is my responsibility. If my boss wants me to go, I'm ready to give my best. I'll take care of myself. You just wait for me to come back with good news." After finishing breakfast, Anna stepped outside with her luggage. The morning air felt crisp, carrying the faint scent of wet grass and flowers from the garden. Her parents followed her to the doorway, standing side by side in quiet silence. Anna carefully placed her suitcase into the boot of the car, then stopped for a moment, turning back toward them. "I'll be back soon," she said softly, forcing a smile to hide the tightness in her chest. Her mother's eyes glistened, and her father gave a small nod, both proud yet heavy-hearted. Their silence was full of love, concern, and the ache of letting her go. Anna opened the car door and slid into the driver's seat. As the engine started, she gripped the steering wheel firmly, her heart beating faster than usual. A wave of excitement rushed through her. This was the journey she had been waiting for, a chance to prove herself. But at the same time, a quiet nervousness whispered in her mind, "What if things don't go as planned?" She glanced once more at her parents, who still stood at the gate, their faces filled with both pride and worry. With a deep breath, she pulled out onto the road. In her rearview mirror, their figures grew smaller and smaller, until all she could see was the long road ahead and the bright horizon waiting for her. After driving for several hours, Anna kept her focus on the road. Since it was her first time traveling alone for work, a quiet nervousness settled in her chest, but she reminded herself that she was brave and determined. She refused to let fear take over. The car rolled onto a long stretch of highway lined with thick jungle on both sides, the tall trees casting shadows that grew darker as the evening sun disappeared. Anna knew she was on the right route towards Seattle, and she told herself that by tomorrow she would reach safely. Still, the silence of the forest and the growing darkness pressed in around her, making the drive feel heavier with every passing mile. As night fell and the road became emptier, Anna decided it would be too risky to continue. Her eyes scanned the roadside carefully until, at last, she noticed an old, weathered house half hidden among the trees. She pulled over, parked her car, and after a moment of hesitation, walked up to the creaking wooden door and knocked gently. The door opened slowly, and standing there was an old woman with wrinkled skin and tired but sharp eyes. Her voice was rough yet steady as she asked, "What do you want?" Anna, trying to sound calm though her heart raced, said politely, "I couldn't find any motel to stay in. I'm driving to Seattle, but it's getting late, and I don't think it's safe to continue at night." The old lady looked at her for a long second before replying, "You can stay here for the night." Anna hesitated, uncertain if she should trust a stranger in such a lonely place, but she knew she had no other choice. Slowly, she stepped inside. The air smelled faintly of damp wood, and the house felt old, with faded curtains and dim light flickering from a single lamp by. She sat down on a wooden chair, clutching her bag tightly, while the old woman stood nearby, silently staring at her. The silence stretched for several seconds, heavy and unsettling, until finally the woman said, "You can sleep in this room. I'll sleep in another." Relieved but still cautious, Anna nodded and whispered, "Thank you. I'll stay here tonight and leave tomorrow morning." The old lady didn't respond. She simply turned away and disappeared into another room, leaving Anna alone with her thoughts, the creaking walls, and the uneasy quiet of the strange house in the middle of the jungle. Anna glanced at her phone, hoping to call home, but the screen showed no signal. A wave of frustration and loneliness passed through her, cut off from the world, surrounded by the silence of the old house. Exhaustion pressed on her body, and though her mind was still restless with doubts, she noticed a small bed in the corner. After sitting there for a while, her thoughts circling between worry and relief, her tiredness finally won, and she drifted into sleep. When morning light slipped through the dusty window, Anna slowly opened her eyes. To her surprise, the old lady was already standing by her side, holding a steaming cup of tea. Her voice was softer than the night before as she said, "Good morning. I hope you slept well. From here, if you go straight about 200 miles, you'll reach Seattle. On the way, you'll pass through several towns, so the journey won't feel so lonely." Anna sat up, touched by the unexpected kindness. Taking the cup carefully, she smiled and said, "Thank you for the tea." As she looked at the woman, her heart softened. Maybe I was wrong to judge her so quickly, Anna thought. She isn't frightening at all, just a quiet, caring soul living alone in this place. After tea, she left from there, drove her car. Hours passed on the road, the hum of the tires her only companion, until she reached an area that looked strangely deserted. On either side of the highway stood old, abandoned factories with broken windows, their rusting metal frames standing like ghosts of a busier time. Nearby, a row of crumbling houses leaned tiredly against each other, their paint peeling, their doors hanging loose. Anna stopped her car for a moment, curiosity pulling her out of her thoughts. She gazed at the forgotten place in silence, a strange mix of sadness and wonder stirring inside her. The emptiness carried a weight, as if stories had once lived there but had long since faded away. Amidst the decay, however, a small patch of life still fought to exist. Wildflowers bloomed stubbornly along the roadside, their colors bright against the dull gray of the ruins. For a few minutes, Anna simply stood there, breathing in the quiet air and letting the contrast settle in her heart. The beauty of the flowers against the loneliness of the abandoned town. Finally, she stepped back into her car, turned the key, and continued her journey. As the miles slipped away beneath her wheels, the scenery began to change. The horizon stretched open, and she caught her first glimpse of distant mountains rising in the sunlight. The highway now stretched long and endless ahead of her, a winding ribbon that promised both challenge and discovery. As Anna drove further along the highway, her eyes suddenly caught the blinking red light on the gas meter. A wave of unease washed over her. She was running out of fuel. She knew she still had a few miles left before the tank went completely dry, but the thought of being stranded in the middle of nowhere tightened her chest. Trying to stay calm, she scanned the roadside carefully, hoping for a gas station, or at least a sign of help. After a while, she spotted a small house by the edge of the road, its paint faded and roof sagging with age. Outside, on a wooden chair, sat an old man, his shoulders slightly hunched, a thin stream of smoke curling upward from the cigarette between his fingers. Relieved to see someone, Anna pulled her car over, parked, and stepped out. This was her only chance to ask for directions. "Excuse me," she said politely, her voice carrying both urgency and fatigue. "I'm running out of gas. Do you know if there's a gas station nearby?" The old man lifted his eyes slowly, studying her with a calm, almost indifferent expression. Taking a long drag from his cigarette, he exhaled before answering in a rough but steady voice. "Keep driving a few more miles down this road. You'll find a gas station there." Anna felt a wave of relief, even though his words were delivered without warmth. She offered him a grateful smile and said, "Thank you so much." Sliding back into her car, she drove away, holding on to the hope that she would make it before the tank ran dry. After several more miles, she finally pulled the car to the side of the highway and stepped out for a moment to breathe. The sight before her made her freeze in awe. The air was crisp and fresh, carrying the faint scent of earth and grass after a cool breeze swept across the land. The vast openness of the place made her feel as though she was the only soul on that long highway, tiny and alone, yet strangely free. Anna closed her eyes for a second, letting the wind brush against her face. A mix of nervousness and wonder filled her chest. Nervous because she still hadn't reached the gas station, but wonder because the world around her was more beautiful than anything she had ever seen before. For a brief moment, her worries softened, and she felt connected to the silence, the land, and the endless sky above her. After standing by the roadside for a few minutes, Anna climbed back into her car, her heart steadying with the hope of finding a gas station soon. Fortune seemed to be On her side, not long after, she came across a small, brightly lit station tucked along the highway. With a wave of relief, she filled her tank, paid the attendant, and set off again, the hum of the engine bringing back her confidence. Her spirits lifted. She was certain now that her destination was not too far away. But just as the evening sky began to fade into streaks of orange and purple, her car sputtered unexpectedly and rolled to a stop. Panic flashed through her for a moment as she tried to restart it, but nothing worked. The road stretched out endlessly on both sides, and though her phone finally had signal, she stared at it, unwilling to call anyone. She didn't want her parents or friends to worry. "I'll be fine," she told herself firmly, though the uncertainty in her chest betrayed her thoughts. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared and the world sank into darkness, Anna realized she had no choice but to spend the night there, stranded on the lonely highway. Cars passed only once in a long while, their headlights vanishing into the distance like brief reminders of civilization. The silence pressed in, broken only by the occasional whisper of wind through the grass. She locked the doors, curled into her seat, and pulled her jacket tighter around herself. Fear crept into her heart. This was her first time sleeping alone in a car, far from home, surrounded by nothing but shadows. Every sound outside, from the rustling leaves to the faint crack of branches, made her tense. Yet, as she lifted her eyes toward the sky, fear gave way to wonder. Above her stretched a canvas of stars, more brilliant than she had ever seen, scattered across the vast darkness like a million tiny lanterns. The silence that had frightened her only minutes ago now felt strangely peaceful, almost magical. She was learning something about herself in this solitude. It was not the night she had imagined, but as she sat there, gazing at the endless sky, she realized this might turn into one of the most unforgettable experiences of her life. The next morning, Anna slowly opened her eyes to the pale light of dawn filtering through the car windows. The world outside was quiet, wrapped in the soft gray of early morning mist. She decided to try her luck. She placed her hands on the wheel and turned the key. To her surprise and relief, the engine roared to life on the very first attempt. A wide smile spread across her face, and her heart leapt with gratitude. Yesterday, it had abandoned me, but today, it carried me forward again. It felt almost magical, as if the car itself had chosen to test her courage and reward her patience. With renewed energy, Anna drove on, the morning sun slowly breaking through the clouds, casting golden light across the long stretch of highway. As the miles passed, she thought about the strange journey she had already lived in just a day. First, finding shelter in the quiet house of the old woman deep in the forest. Then, wandering through abandoned factories where silence clung to every broken wall. And finally, spending a night alone under a sky full of endless stars. Each moment had frightened her, yet each had also strengthened her. The landscape began to change again. Rolling green hills gave way to broader roads, and traffic grew steadily heavier as she close to the city. By afternoon, the skyline of Seattle rose before her, tall and alive, glinting beneath the sunlight. For a moment, she simply slowed the car and gazed at it, her chest swelling with relief, pride, and the quiet realization that she had made it on her own. Driving through the busy streets, she finally pulled up to her office. The glass doors reflected the city around her, bustling and full of life. She parked, stepped out, and stood still for a moment, letting the sound of honking cars and rushing footsteps replace the silence of the highway she had left behind. A sense of accomplishment warmed her. She had faced fear, loneliness, and uncertainty, yet she had kept moving forward. As she walked toward the entrance, Anna whispered to herself with a small smile, "This is only the beginning."